I never thought I would find myself in a situation like this. It started off like any other day in my life with Jenna, my wife of 5 years. We had our issues, sure. What couple does? But I believed we were solid. We had a nice house in the suburbs, a dog named Max, and dreams of starting a family soon. But then, things began to unravel in a way I never expected. It all began a few months ago. I noticed her behavior shifting slightly. Jenna was more distant, spending longer hours at the gym or out with friends. When she came home, she had this air of secrecy about her. The way she would quickly put her phone down when I walked in the room, or suddenly change the subject when I asked about her day, those red flags started piling up. I brushed it off at first, attributing it to stress from her job at the marketing firm. After all, life can get busy, and maybe I was just overthinking things. But then came the day I came home early from work. I thought I could surprise Jenna with dinner. I walked into the house and the first thing I noticed was a strange car parked in our driveway. My heart raced a little. Maybe it was just a friend visiting, but something deep down felt off. I walked quietly to the back of the house, and as I approached our bedroom, I heard laughter. Not just any laughter, but that giddy, flirtatious kind that makes your stomach churn. I peeked through the slightly ajar door. There was Jenna, sprawled out on our bed, looking completely at ease. And there, right beside her, was Jake, our home security guy. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I stood frozen, my mind racing. The realization that my wife was cheating on me with some guy who was supposed to be ensuring our safety was almost too much to handle. Just a few weeks prior, I had trusted Jake to install our camera system, thinking he was professional and reliable. Now, I couldn't help but feel the world was laughing at me. It took every ounce of strength to back away from the door without them noticing. I needed to gather my thoughts. I couldn't confront Jenna in that moment while the betrayal was still fresh and raw. Instead, I decided to take a step back and plan how to approach this. After all, I didn't want to lose my temper and say something I would regret. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I observed Jenna as if she were a stranger. Her lies felt like poison dripping into my veins, and I was determined to confront her. I started jotting down everything I could remember that felt off. The late-night work meetings, the unexplained absences, and the fact that she had changed her phone password without telling me. I knew I had to prepare for the inevitable confrontation, and I wanted to make sure I had my facts straight. Finally, the day came. I had decided that I couldn't let this go on any longer. I waited until she came home one evening, and as she walked in, I felt my heart pound in my chest. I knew I had to be calm, collected, no matter how much turmoil was happening inside of me. As she stood there, smiling and talking about her day, I felt an overwhelming wave of anger and betrayal wash over me. "Jenna, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady yet strained. She looked at me, her smile disappearing. "What's wrong?" I jumped right in. "I saw you with Jake. You need to tell me the truth." Her reaction was immediate. The way her eyes widened and the color drained from her face told me everything I needed to know. Suddenly, a game of verbal gymnastics began. She tried to downplay it, claiming it was just harmless flirting, that I was being paranoid. But I couldn't let her talk me down. I pressed her for answers, and that's when the lies started pouring out. "I was just having fun. It didn't mean anything," she said, a desperate edge to her voice. That was when the anger bubbled over. "Harmless. You're lying in our bed with him," I shouted, my emotions bubbling over. As I watched her squirm and craft excuse after excuse, I felt my heart harden. How could someone I loved so deeply betray me like this? Everything I thought I knew about our life together was suddenly shattered. I thought about all the moments we had shared, the dreams we built together, and how easily it all unraveled. In that moment, I realized I couldn't stay in a situation where trust was non-existent. I felt a surge of anger mixed with sadness. I was determined to take control of my life again. What would I do next? The thought of it consumed me. As I confronted Jenna, I could see the panic rising in her eyes. The lies were tumbling out of her mouth, and the more she spoke, the more my disbelief morphed into a chilling detachment. It was like standing in the eye of a storm. Everything was chaotic around me, but I felt strangely calm, as if I were floating above the chaos. I knew that this was a pivotal moment, one that could set the course of the rest of my life. "Why Jenna? Why him?" I asked, desperation creeping into my tone. "What did I do wrong?" She took a deep breath, and for a second I actually thought she might tell me the truth. "It's not you, it's me. You've been so busy with work and I just felt lonely," she exclaimed, her voice rising in pitch. "Jake listened to me. He made me feel special. I wanted to laugh at the absurdity of her words. Special. With a guy who installed security cameras, it was pathetic. But at that moment, my heart was breaking. I felt like I was watching a train wreck in slow motion. I couldn't believe that the woman I once promised to love for better or worse was standing there making excuses for her betrayal. "Lonely," I repeated, trying to contain the anger boiling within me. "You could have talked to me. We could have worked on it together. This isn't just a mistake, Jenna. You chose to cheat on me." She began to cry, and I felt a bitter mix of anger and pity. "I never meant to hurt you. It just happened." She sobbed, putting her hands on her face. But I wasn't going to let her manipulate me with tears. I was done being the understanding husband who would accept her half-hearted apologies. "Save it. I don't want to hear your excuses anymore," I said, my voice firm. "You've shattered my trust, and I can't live like this." As I stared into her eyes, I saw a flash of realization. She understood that this time I wasn't going to forgive her. I wasn't going to let her lie to me anymore. It was like a switch had flipped inside me. The anger was no longer just about her betrayal, but also about reclaiming my dignity. "Where's Jake?" I asked with a coldness I didn't know I possessed. "I don't know, he's just a guy I met at the gym," she replied, but the desperation in her voice didn't convince me. It was more than that, and I was done being naive. That night, as Jenna cried and pleaded for my forgiveness, I made a decision. I would not only confront her verbally, I would make sure she understood the weight of her actions. I would take control of this situation and ensure that she could never get back in my life, literally and figuratively. I spent the next hour plotting my response. I grabbed my phone and started texting Jake. I needed to know how deep this rabbit hole went. I wanted evidence. I wanted to feel justified in my actions. I sent him a simple message: "We need to talk. Meet me at the house tomorrow at noon." I knew he would show up. He was arrogant enough to think he could charm me like he charmed my wife. After I sent the message, I turned to Jenna, who had quieted down but was still sniffling on the couch. "You're going to have to leave," I said bluntly. "I can't look at you right now." "What do you mean, where will I go?" She shot back, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Find somewhere to stay. A hotel, a friend, anywhere but here. I'll help you pack your things in the morning," I replied. There was no room for sympathy in my heart anymore. I felt like I was finally emerging from a fog, seeing everything clearly for the first time. She opened her mouth to protest, but I held up a hand. "This isn't up for discussion. You made your choices, and now I'm making mine. You need to leave." As Jenna collected her belongings, I felt an odd mix of emotions. I was angry, heartbroken, and oddly relieved. I no longer had to pretend everything was okay when it was clear that it was. The next morning I woke up early, my mind racing with plans. I called a locksmith and arranged for all the locks to be changed that day. I didn't want to leave any room for Jenna to sneak back into my life. I wanted her to understand that she had crossed a line and there was no way back from this. When she returned to the house to gather her final things, I felt a sense of satisfaction wash over me. I had taken control. I watched her struggle to pack in silence, and the bitterness began to melt away, replaced by a strong sense of empowerment. I was finally doing something for myself. As she walked out the door, I couldn't help but feel a flicker of sadness for what we once had. But it was quickly overshadowed by the realization that I wouldn't allow anyone to deceive me again. I was reclaiming my life, and this was just the beginning. After Jenna left, the silence in the house was deafening. It felt like a weight had been lifted, yet I was still reeling from the emotional upheaval. I moved through the empty spaces of our home, touching the walls as if to remind myself of the memories we had created together. But now, all I felt was an overwhelming urge to pack everything associated with her away, as if I could physically remove the remnants of our relationship from my life. That first week was a blur. I threw myself into work, desperately trying to drown out the memories of her laughter and the late-night whispers that had once filled our home. I buried myself in projects and deadlines, allowing the chaos of my job to keep my mind off the heartbreak. But no matter how busy I kept myself, the ache in my chest lingered. With each passing day, I felt a twinge of regret for how everything had unfolded. I had once loved Jenna fiercely, and now she was gone, exiled from the life we built together. The betrayal still stung, but I realized that I also needed to focus on healing. I began to reach out to friends, asking them to join me for drinks or to hang out on weekends. I needed to remind myself what it felt like to laugh again, to connect with people who genuinely cared for me. One evening, while sitting at a bar with my friend Mike, I shared the whole story with him, the affair, the confrontation, and how I had changed the locks. "You did the right thing, man," he said, nodding. "You deserve better than that, but are you sure about Jake? What are you planning to do about him?" I had briefly considered confronting Jake, but I wasn't sure how to proceed. He had invaded the one sanctuary I thought I had, and the thought of him strutting around my home was like a poison in my veins. I felt a brewing storm of anger inside me, and I didn't want it to fester. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I wasn't done with him either. The next few days passed, and I mulled over how to deal with Jake. I finally decided I would confront him, not for Jenna's sake but for my own. I needed closure, and I wanted to ensure he knew the pain he had caused. I wanted to strip him of his arrogance, to lay bare how his actions affected my life. On a Saturday afternoon, I waited for Jake outside the house. I had texted him earlier, telling him to meet me to talk about Jenna. I didn't want to give too much away, as I was eager to see how he'd react to my presence. When his car pulled into the driveway, I felt a rush of adrenaline. I was ready. He stepped out of the car with that familiar, cocky grin plastered on his face, the kind that made me want to punch him. "Hey man, what's this about?" he called out, clearly unfazed by my message. "Let's talk," I said, my voice steady but laced with an edge of anger. I gestured for him to come inside, and he followed without hesitation. As we entered the house, I closed the door behind us, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it. "First off," I began, my tone icy, "let's clear the air. I know you've been seeing Jenna behind my back." His expression shifted slightly, but he quickly masked it with a casual shrug. "Dude, it was just a fling. You know how it is." "How it is?" I interrupted, unable to contain my rage any longer. "You call that a fling? You were in my house, in my bed. You violated my trust. You're not some random guy. You were supposed to be a trusted professional, a security guy. But instead, you're just a coward hiding behind your charm." Jake's demeanor changed. He started to realize I wasn't backing down. "Look, man, I didn't know things were so serious between you two. I thought you were just busy with work," he said, trying to defend himself. "Don't try to play that card," I shot back. "You knew exactly what you were doing. You chose to go after my wife, and now look where we are." I stepped closer to him, feeling a surge of power. "You think you can just waltz in and take what's mine? That's not how this works." He opened his mouth, probably to throw out another excuse, but I wasn't interested in hearing more lies. I leaned in, lowering my voice so only he could hear. "Here's the deal, Jake. I'm changing the locks, and you are no longer welcome in my life. I want you to stay the hell away from me and Jenna. I don't want to see you around here again, understood?" For a moment, he looked taken aback, processing my threat. Then with a feigned bravado, he laughed. "You really think you can just banish me? This isn't over, you know. Jenna is out of your life. You took something from me, and I won't let you keep it," I interrupted, my voice steady. "You might think you've won, but you've lost just as much. Don't test me." I saw his expression change as he realized I wasn't bluffing. There was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, and for a moment I felt a sense of satisfaction. "Just remember," I continued, "I won't hesitate to make it clear to others what kind of person you are. This isn't just about me, it's about what you did to my life." With that, I turned on my heel and walked toward the door, leaving him speechless. I opened the front door and gestured for him to exit. "Get out of my house." He hesitated for a moment before finally walking past me, his shoulders slumped. As he stepped outside, I felt a surge of victory. I had asserted my boundaries, and for the first time, I felt like I was taking control of my life again. As he drove away, I stood on my front porch feeling a mixture of relief and empowerment. I had confronted the man who had crossed the line, and now I was free to move forward. I took a deep breath, feeling lighter, as if the weight of the world was slowly lifting off my shoulders. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but in that moment I was ready to face whatever came next. I had learned that I could reclaim my life. I could rebuild, and I would not let anyone bring me down again. In the days following my confrontation with Jake, I felt a strange combo of relief and determination. It was like I had finally shed the skin of the infuriating past and emerged ready to face a new chapter in my life. I realized that I had been consumed by the betrayal for too long, and it was time to focus on myself and my own healing. To help redirect my energy, I decided to embark on a project to revitalize the house. I wanted to reclaim every corner of the space that I had once shared with Jenna. I started with the backyard. I had always envisioned hosting summer barbecues and lounging by the fire pit with friends. I contacted a landscaping service to come in and tidy up the overgrown grass and weeds that had taken over during my emotional haze. As I worked on revamping the garden, I found a sense of purpose. The physical labor helped me channel my anger and frustration into something productive. I pulled weeds, pruned shrubs, and planted new flowers. Each little task made me feel like I was reclaiming my life, one small victory at a time. One day, while I was digging into the soil, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from Mike. "Hey man, you want to join us for a hike this weekend? Fresh air and good company." I was hesitant at first, still feeling the emotional remnants of the past weeks, but I knew that staying cooped up wouldn't help me heal. I replied with a simple, "Yeah, I'd love to." That Saturday, I met up with Mike and a couple of our mutual friends at a local hiking trail. As we ventured into the woods, with the sunlight filtering through the trees, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The chatter and banter of my friends brought a much-needed distraction from the heaviness that had clouded my thoughts for so long. "Looks like you're in need of some fun, man," Mike said as we reached a scenic overlook. "You've been working too hard on that yard. Let loose a little." "Yeah, I know, just trying to keep my mind clear," I admitted, while trying to take in the beautiful view. I didn't want to bring the mood down, so I changed the subject. "How about you guys? What's new?" As we shared stories and caught up, I realized how much I'd missed this camaraderie. Laughter felt good, and I found myself loosening the tight grip I had on my emotions. As the day unfolded, I felt a flicker of hope, a reminder that life would go on. By the time we finished the hike and headed to a local brewery for some beers, I felt lighter. The conversations flowed, and for the first time in months, I could feel genuine smiles on my face. My friends encouraged me to share more about my experiences, and it felt liberating. To open up, they were supportive, reminding me that I was deserving of love and happiness. However, amidst the laughter, there were still moments when the memories of Jenna crept back in. I would see a couple laughing together or a family enjoying a day out, and a pang of loss would hit me. I knew that I had to confront those feelings, embrace the grief, and allow myself to heal. As the weeks passed, I continued to focus on myself. I joined a local gym, began cooking new recipes, and even started volunteering at a local shelter. I wanted to channel my energy into something positive, something that would help me grow. I built a routine that revolved around self-care and self-improvement, and it felt good to take charge of my life again. But then, something unexpected happened. One evening, while I was out having dinner with a group of friends, I noticed a woman sitting at the bar. She had a warm smile and an easy laugh, and as we exchanged glances across the room, I felt a flutter of excitement I hadn't experienced in a long while. I could hardly believe it. Was it possible to feel attracted to someone again? My friends had noticed her too, and they nudged me to go talk to her. It felt terrifying, but I knew it was a step I had to take. I walked over to the bar, introduced myself, and struck up a conversation. Her name was Sarah, and she had a warmth about her that instantly made me feel at ease. We swapped stories and shared laughs, and before I knew it, we had been talking for hours. By the end of the night, we exchanged numbers, and I felt a spark of hope. I wasn't ready to rush into anything, but just the idea that I could connect with someone on a genuine level felt invigorating. My heart was slowly starting to mend. That evening with Sarah lingered in my mind for days. I found myself smiling more often, and I realized that I was ready to embrace new possibilities. It was time to let go of the past and focus on building a future that didn't include the betrayal I had endured. When I finally worked up the courage to text Sarah, I felt a rush of excitement. We started chatting regularly and eventually set up a date. As I prepared for our first outing, I felt a mix of nerves and anticipation. Would I be able to let my guard down? Would I still be capable of trusting someone again? As the day of our date approached, I couldn't help but reflect on how far I had come. I had battled through heartbreak and betrayal, but I was beginning to find my footing again. I realized that I deserved happiness and connection, and the possibility of a new relationship excited me. I was ready to take a leap of faith, and for the first time in a long while I felt hopeful about the future. The day of my date with Sarah finally arrived, and I was a ball of nerves. I wanted everything to go smoothly, but the lingering doubts from my past still played in my mind. What if I messed up? What if I wasn't ready? Deep down, I knew I had to quiet those voices. I had put in the work to heal, and now it was time to enjoy the fruits of that labor. I arrived at the restaurant a bit early, wanting to give myself a moment to breathe and gather my thoughts. As I sat at the bar, I ordered a drink and glanced around, taking in the ambience. The place was buzzing with laughter and chatter, and I felt my excitement building. I was ready to meet someone new, someone who could be part of my future. When Sarah walked through the door, my breath caught in my throat. She looked stunning, a radiant smile on her face as she scanned the room for me. I waved her over, and as she approached, I felt a nervous flutter in my stomach. "Hey, I'm so glad you made it," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Me too. I've been looking forward to this all week," she replied, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. We settled into our seats and the conversation flowed easily. We talked about everything from our favorite movies to our most embarrassing moments. It felt refreshing to laugh and connect in such an effortless way. As the evening wore on, I found myself forgetting about the pain of the past. Sarah was kind, funny, and genuine. I could feel the weight of my previous relationship lifting as I engaged with her. It was a reminder that life could be enjoyable again. As we finished our meals, I decided to take a leap of faith. "I've really enjoyed tonight, Sarah. I'd love to see you again," I said, my heart racing as I awaited her response. "I'd like that too," she smiled, her eyes dancing. "Let's definitely make it happen." After a few more dates, things started to heat up between us. I found myself feeling things I thought I had buried for good. The way she laughed at my jokes, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her passions, it was exhilarating. Slowly but surely, I was starting to open my heart again. It felt like a new chapter was beginning, and I was ready to embrace it. However, just when I thought I was moving forward, life threw me another curveball. One evening, as I was scrolling through social media, I stumbled across a post from Jenna. She had shared a picture of herself with Jake, smiling happy, with an arm draped over her shoulder. The caption read, "New Beginnings." I felt like I had been punched in the gut all over again. The anger and betrayal surged back to the surface, and I could feel my heart racing. How could she move on so quickly? The memories of our time together flooded back, and I struggled to breathe. I had worked hard to let go of the past, but this felt like a punch to the gut. In that moment, I realized that my healing journey wasn't over. I had the right to feel hurt and angry, but I also needed to remember how far I had come. I put my phone down and took a few deep breaths. I reminded myself that Jenna's choices no longer defined my happiness. I was on my own path now, and I needed to stay focused on that. The next day, I reached out to Mike. I needed to talk it out. "Dude, I saw Jenna's post," I said, my voice tense. "Yeah, I figured you might have. It's tough, man, but you have to keep moving forward. You're in a better place now," he replied, sounding supportive. "I know, but it just stings to see her so happy with him. It's like a slap in the face, you know." I admitted, frustration bubbling up. "You're doing great. Remember, she's not your problem anymore. Focus on what's in front of you like Sarah," Mike encouraged, redirecting my thoughts. "Yeah, you're right. I need to keep that in perspective," I said, nodding. "It's just hard sometimes." As I hung up, I took a moment to reflect. Yes, Jenna had moved on, But that didn't mean I had to linger in the past. I had a chance at happiness with Sarah, and I needed to grab it with both hands. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that healing is a process, and it's okay to have setbacks. It's part of the journey, and I was still standing. I decided I wouldn't let Jenna's actions dictate my happiness. I was ready to return to focus on the present and what I had built with Sarah. The next time I met up with Sarah, I made a conscious effort to leave the past behind. I opened up to her about my experiences without going into too much detail. I wanted her to understand where I was coming from, but I also wanted to build something fresh and exciting between us. As we sat across from each other at our favorite coffee shop, I could see her genuine interest. "I really appreciate you sharing that with me. It sounds like you've been through a lot, but I think it's amazing how you're moving forward," she said, her voice warm and encouraging. "Thanks, Sarah. It's been a journey, but I'm excited about the future," I replied, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. In the weeks that followed, our connection deepened. I found myself laughing more and allowing my heart to open. I started to imagine a future filled with joy and companionship instead of betrayal and pain. I finally felt like I had reclaimed my life. I was finally ready to let love back in, and it felt good. I realized that while the scars of the past would always be there, they didn't have to define me. I could embrace the lessons and move forward. As I lay in bed one night, watching the moonlight dance across my ceiling, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I was healing, and that was enough for now. The past was behind me, and I was ready to embrace whatever the future held. As the weeks went by, life continued to surprise me in ways I hadn't anticipated. I found myself falling deeper into a new rhythm with Sarah, and it felt refreshing. Our relationship grew organically, each date filled with laughter, shared stories, and a genuine connection that reminded me what love felt like. For the first time in ages, I felt a spark of joy that I thought I had lost forever. One evening, while we were out at a cozy Italian restaurant, I realized just how far I had come. We were sharing a bottle of wine, our conversation flowing easily, punctuated by laughter and the occasional playful banter. As I looked into Sarah's eyes, I felt something shift within me. I was ready to take a leap of faith. "Sarah, there's something I want to say," I started, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. "I never thought I'd be in a position to say this again, but I really care about you. You've brought so much light into my life. I'm ready to let you in completely." Her smile widened and she reached for my hand, her touch warm and reassuring. "I feel the same way. I can see how hard you've worked to heal, and it's inspiring. I'm excited to explore this journey together." In that moment, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I had finally moved past the shadows of my past and embraced the possibility of a brighter future. The pain of betrayal, while still a part of me, no longer held me captive. I had learned to trust again, not just in others but in myself. As the days turned into months, I continued to focus on the present and the relationships I was building. I made a conscious effort to nurture the bonds with my friends and family, spending more time with them and cherishing those connections. I also invested time in myself, pursuing hobbies that I had neglected and finding joy in the little things, like morning walks with Max, my dog, or trying out new recipes in the kitchen. One afternoon, I decided to revisit the backyard. After all the work I'd done on it, it had transformed into a relaxing oasis. I set up a small fire pit and invited Mike and a few friends over for a barbecue. As we gathered around the fire, roasting marshmallows and reminiscing about old times, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. "Cheers to new beginnings." Mike raised his glass and the group echoed him. I joined in, lifting my drink with a smile, feeling the warmth of camaraderie wash over me. Later that night, after the last of my friends had left, I stood outside under the stars, taking in the peacefulness of the night. It struck me how much had changed in such a short time. I thought about Jenna and Jake, how their actions had initially thrust me into a darkness I never expected to experience. And yet, here I was, stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever the future held. I had learned some invaluable lessons through all of this. Betrayal can shake you to your core, but it can also propel you into growth and self-discovery. I understood that it was okay to feel vulnerable, to seek support from friends and family, and to embrace the healing journey. I realized that moving forward didn't mean forgetting the past. It meant acknowledging it and using it as a stepping stone toward a better life. As I turned to go inside, I thought about Sarah and how she had entered my life when I least expected it. I felt hope blossom within me, a hope that blossomed not from the absence of pain but from the strength I had gained in overcoming it. I was grateful for her presence, for the laughter we shared, and for the new memories we were creating together. Life had a way of surprising me, and while I couldn't predict what was to come, I was ready to face it head-on. I had learned to trust again, not just in others but in the journey of life itself. Each day was a new opportunity to embrace joy, love, and genuine connections. With a deep breath, I stepped inside, feeling a sense of peace settle over me. I had emerged from the storm, and I was finally ready to embrace the sunshine. Whatever lay ahead, I knew I would face it with an open heart and a newfound strength. This was my new beginning, and I was ready to make the most of it.